Managing Director of the Black Management Forum, Monde Ndlovu, joins us now for more. Good evening. Thanks for joining us here on Late Edition.
Good evening to you and a very good evening to your viewers.
Now, the BMF says that South Africa's inequality is deepening and has done so this year. What would you say is the single biggest reason the GNU is failing black people right now?
I think the single reason why the GNU is failing black people right now is a lack of cohesion and a lack of clarity around black economic empowerment and how to drive it more meaningfully amongst the GNU partners. And so that is the single most important thing, is the alignment, the understanding, the clarity that must come with it. But unfortunately, we have seen, even with the DA's economic inclusion bill that's been tabled, it's really causing more tension around the very clarity that is needed, in the GNU, amongst the executive, within government.
Let's chat a bit about the JSE Top 100 with a very small percent black-owned. What do you think needs to be done immediately, if you like, to correct this?
So that matter really, firstly, is an old matter around driving transformation in the JSE-listed companies, ought to reflect, the demographics of the Republic. And secondly, as we've seen over the years, which BMF has been pushing, to see both race and gender being part of listing requirements at the JSE level. And so that was the other step. The other step, which is also going to be quite critical around driving more meaningful transformation, is having a more directed approach to ESD, specifically enterprise development. And part of this initiative in having a more directed enterprise development is having listed companies, those that are playing in major sectors. We have 3, 4, 5 major players in almost every industry, them actually developing their own black competition. And that is another way of understanding enterprise development. Instead of a big company putting money into a black business that's far away from the industry that they operate in, it's almost counterproductive, actually. And so when you have, for an example, in the financial services sector, when you're now having financial services companies actually making a decision to develop their own black competition that look like them, so that it's easier for skills transfer, it's easier for putting capital into those black enterprises, and actually widening the cake from that perspective. So that is one of the ways in which to actually drive more meaningful black business development, when you have listed companies actually developing their own black business competition.
Now, unemployment is at crisis level in the country, with the Eastern Cape at 45%. What can and needs to be done to transform desperate job seekers into entrepreneurs?
So specifically, when it comes to that particular matter, we've got to now look at the key levers the state has, even at a local government, provincial level, which is procurement. So now procurement has actually been one of the key issues that was discussed, even at the policy conference, both the first panel, second panel, in fact, even the third panel, which was dealing with the oceans economy. And that is a key lever of government. So we've got to really look at how government is engaging the procurement matter, and everyone is trying to queue to do business with the state. And we've got to clean up that approach around procurement and the supply development and the value chain that gives effect to the procurement processes. And that's one of the fastest ways to actually drive an entrepreneurial flair from a public sector perspective, especially a local government perspective, because from a government point of view, you know exactly which goods and services you need, because government, is the biggest procurer of goods and services in almost every country. And so you've got to start there. That's a massive lever. And that's why there's been such massive debate in this country around procurement, how it should be done, the set-asides that are there, who is to be prioritized, women, youth, and people living with disability. So from a government point of view, that's the first starting point coupled with skills development. So you've got to look at the procurement as government from a local level, ensuring that there are black businesses, women-owned businesses, youth-owned businesses that are coming in, driving that procurement of specific goods and services and building black businesses around what the government actually needs from a procurement point of view. So that really is one of the low-hanging fruits from a procurement perspective in order to drive this agenda, and then coupled with skills development that follows those goods and services that can be built around that kind of approach. So that is one of the key areas in which to try and deal with this crisis on the ground.
And lastly, and very briefly, if you will, is BBBEE still fit for purpose?
So firstly, broad-based black economic empowerment, which is now the flavor of debate now in this country, it definitely needs to remain. It has evolved over the years, which is one of the key issues that people are not really talking about. It has moved from ownership transactions. It has skills development in the framework. You've got management control, which then has employment equity on the other side. You've got ESD, which I've briefly spoken about. Then you also have socio-economic development. Now, we need to keep evolving the process, and there has been actually good wins around other elements of it. Employment equity is one, where we've seen black talent get into leadership and management because of the law. So it really needs to remain. If you remove it, then you reverse the gains. We've seen ownership transactions, especially when it comes to employee share schemes in the country. Standard Bank is one good example, and others where employees actually benefited from the winding up of deals at that level. So we've seen some good gains. Skills development, JSE-listed companies a couple of years ago spent about 11 billion rands on skills development. And of course, you've got to follow up that as to what has been the impact of that. So the framework actually is working. The challenge is the implementers, both at a government level and also at a private sector level.
Thank you so much for sharing your views and thoughts this evening. The Managing Director, at least, of the Black Management Forum, Monde Ndlovu.